Mark Milley, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin were testifying both in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee and I think this afternoon the House Armed Services Committee. Largely, they are being questioned on the Afghanistan pullout, which in the final analysis, over 120,000 people were evacuated, and we ended a 20-year-long war there. Net positive. And there are definitely areas of the country that are now sliding backwards in terms of progress that was made with women and other, I guess, Western values, as it were. But for the vast majority of the country, they just wanted the wars to end so that they could actually live, period. Never mind live certain values. And some of them may have had resentment towards these Western values. But the bottom line is that imposing these on a country at the cost of the lives of many of their countrymen turned out to be something they did not want. Here is Mark Milley testifying in front of Senator Tom Cotton, who is really mad that we ended this war.
It's definitely not performative, too, this part. Definitely not.
Always performative, yeah. But this is what he's performing.
Just got one final question. General Milley, I can only conclude that your advice about staying in Afghanistan was rejected. I'm shocked to learn that your advice wasn't sought until August 25th on staying past the August 31 deadline. I understand that you're the principal military advisor, that you advise, you don't decide, the president decides. But if all this is true, General Milley, why haven't you resigned?
Senator, as a senior military officer, resigning is a really serious thing. It's a political act if I'm resigning in protest. My job is to provide advice. My statutory responsibility is to provide legal advice or best military advice to the president, and that's my legal requirement. That's what the law is. The president doesn't have to agree with that advice. He doesn't have to make those decisions just because we're generals. And it would be an incredible act of political defiance for a commissioned officer to just resign because my advice is not taken. This country doesn't want generals figuring out what orders we are going to accept and do or not. That's not our job. The principle of civilian control of the military is absolute. It's critical to this republic. In addition to that, just from a personal standpoint, you know, my dad didn't get a choice to resign at Iwo Jima. And those kids that are at Abbey Gate, they don't get a choice to resign. And I'm not going to turn my back on them. I'm not going to resign. They can't resign, so I'm not going to resign. There's no way. If the orders are illegal, we're in a different place. But if the orders are legal from civilian authority, I intend to carry them out.
Thank you, Senator Cotton.
Now, I appreciated every single thing that Milley had to say, and it was fun to watch Tom Cotton be put in his place over an issue like that. I do think, though, that if the reporting on what Mark Milley did during the end of the Trump administration, though I may be glad he did it, he should resign for that very principle. I mean, and this is a really important distinction I think that people need to make. I can support Mark Milley stopping a lunatic in the White House from starting World War III. But once that threat is over, he's got to resign so that he can maintain the principle he just mentioned. Like, you know, like we hear all these scenarios about, you know, what if the president knew that there was a nuclear weapon in a down a well and they had to torture somebody and
just
et cetera, et cetera.
People watch 24 and then have nightmares.
Yeah, exactly.
And play out those scenarios in real life.
Shouldn't torture be legal because of that? No. If the president's in that position and he thinks that torturing is going to save the lives of millions of Americans, the president makes a decision to torture, very much appreciated. And then after the threat is gone, you resign because you want to maintain the value of that principle. We cannot have military leadership usurp civilian leadership. And if military commanders feel it's necessary in the moment to do it, thank you. Now resign. Maybe then maybe they still get their pension. Maybe they don't go to prison, depending on the situation. But you resign because you say, I was put into a situation where I had to defy my core brand proposition, my fundamental orders of whatnot it is. So
and it's also just, I mean, that principle is so important because Matt's pointed this out a few times, like the propensity of the media to talk about the military as separate from the dirty, grimy elements of politics and just looking out for American interests internationally and at home. That's why they love Mark Milley, too, because he's somebody in uniform who can say those things and also dunk on Donald Trump.
folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.